I'm Nancy Leader on the Zeta Report. Are we headed into another depression? Despite the reluctance of the media to use the word recession, there are a lot of similarities between 2008 and 1929. The Roaring Twenties were a time of excess, greed, and lack of restraint. Sound familiar? Wall Street speculators had no constraints in 1929. Stock value was whatever the promoter claimed. The SEC was created after the crash in 1929 and because of the crash. Well, the SEC is now supposedly watching Wall Street. So what happened to cause the crash of 2008? Stocks dropped below 8,000 on the Dow, down from a high of over 14,000 just the year before. This is half the previous value. Stocks on the Dow lost 18% of their value in 1 week. After 1929, the SEC was watching Wall Street. Financial disclosure was mandatory. But no one was watching real estate. The 2008 crash was caused by the subprime mortgage debacle. The housing market was booming. Why? Everyone was getting mortgages, even if they didn't qualify. The theory was that housing prices would always go up, so how could a homeowner ever lose? Demand would drive the prices up, and then homeowners could borrow on their new equity. But all bubbles burst. Why was this allowed to happen during the Bush years? Per the Zetas, this was deliberate, so Bush could continue the war in Iraq. To maintain the war in Iraq, a facade of financial health was needed, so the American people would not rebel. In the short term, the construction industry boomed. The Roaring Twenties had their real estate boom too. Interest-only mortgages. Sound familiar? No one was watching the mortgage market then either. Another similarity is debt. During the Roaring Twenties, everyone was encouraged to go up to their neck in debt. As with today, debt is a house of cards waiting to be knocked over by a feather or a storm. The Great Depression had the Dust Bowl. The situation today is much, much worse. In the words of the Zetas, we mentioned that crop failure would follow the irregular weather, and it did. But buildings collapsing in earthquakes, trains running off suddenly twisted tracks, factories exploding as gas lines breach, and storms tearing at coastlines without remorse do more than represent an opportunity to rebuild. They represent insurance companies unable to pay for rebuilding, factories laying off workers or unable to function, and distribution of goods blocked. During the Great Depression, those thrown out of work and out of their homes had to make do as best they could. Today, we have welfare and unemployment benefits, a network of social services. But many people are still living in their cars or have become homeless. During the Great Depression in 1929, unemployment was estimated at 25%. Aren't we better off today? Today, true unemployment is estimated at 20%. When do you ever hear of people hiring? It's always layoffs by the tens of thousands, one company after another. During the Clinton years, job creation exceeded population growth. But during the Bush years, this floundered. We hear all the time about low unemployment. Is this a lie? Well, the short answer is yes. The government is issuing statistics based on a birth-death model, which means if you're alive, you're assumed to be working. If you stopped collecting unemployment, you don't even count among the unemployed. And if you've been forced to work a part-time job without benefits, you're counted as employed. So in 1929, we had a Wall Street crash, a housing boom, heavy debt, homelessness, unemployment, and bad weather. Hey, any other similarities? Yeah, bank failure. when the inability to repay the choking debt owed to banks affected liquidity, available cash on hand for new loans, and foreclosures and bankruptcies shattered the value of assets on the books, banks became insolvent. This started bank runs. Half the banks, approximately 11,000 of 22,000, were allowed to fail in the U.S. during the Great Depression. This was a mistake, not to be repeated in 2008. IndyMac, considered the largest bank ever to fail, collapsed in July 2008 with depositors desperate to withdraw their deposits. Deposits beyond the FDIC insured $100,000 per person were simply lost. Then in September 2008, Lehman Brothers and Merrill Lynch suddenly went belly up. This was following the collapse of Bear Stearns earlier in the year. 3 of the 5 pillars of Wall Street had now collapsed, and the other 2 were shaky. And credit was drying up as banks were clogged by bad mortgage debt and were unable to make new loans. But the lessons of the Great Depression, a lack of credit, so businesses could get bridge loans and startups were not squelched. That lesson had been learned. Extraordinary steps to ensure liquidity and stability were taken in October by central banks around the world. But per the Zetas, this will not result in boom times returning, because the pole shift is coming, and all those devastating earth changes will only get worse. Eventually, down the road, times will get tougher. The lessons of the Great Depression, helping one another, being resourceful, and getting along without money, these are still apropos. Until next time on the Zeta Report, this is Nancy Leader.